Good morning. My name is Natalie. Welcome to Sovereign Spirituality. I have my friend Alyssa here with me today. My new friend.
Yes.
Okay, so our background with Alyssa is I was just saying, I answered a Craigslist ad for her, I think, or
It's how I live my life.
you. I don't know which one of them happened.
It was me.
So she had put something out on Facebook looking for, because you are a manifesting coach, right? Like, this is your ideal.
I loosely call it that to get people's attention who will just generally know what that means.
Uh-huh.
I'm more of like a confidence coach. I'm more of a whatever's going on for you, let's get you fully on board and lit up and fired. I'm more of like a cheerleader and like your biggest fan. But coaching happens and other things, so it's just my little, hot words to throw out there to see,
Well, you got my attention with manifesting coach, and I was all like, oh, like, I love that. Beautiful. So beautiful that you put it out there. I slid into her DMs.
Sneaky.
And I was like, hey, I think it's awesome. Would it be weird if we met in person just to see? Like, I have a podcast. I would love to be able to talk to you and see, like, pick your brain. These are things that I know about. Like, manifesting is a thing that I talk about a little bit here and there. And it's just kind of like the spiritual side of life, basically. So I reached out to her, and we met last week for coffee. And, like, it felt like as soon as we saw each other, we hugged each other.
We did.
And then you hugged me again, and it was just kind of like, oh, there you are.
Yeah.
It really felt like, okay, this is exactly right. Like, we went into conversation like we've known each other for years. Like, we gave our background a little bit, but... And then, of course, the similarities, because, like, when you meet a soulmate, you know what I mean? Like, this person on the same level is just kind of is like, oh, okay, it's time.
Yeah. It's like, it's funny because you have those preliminary questions of before you meet someone, like, oh, should I look for this? Or, like, what kind of things are you going to initially ask them? But then when you meet someone that you're just, like, meant to meet, it's like, that all just disappears, and you're just, like, hugs.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
like,
so it literally was
it was really fun because I had snuck out to use the bathroom, and then when I came out, I was like, I wonder if she's here yet. And before I had the chance to even, do I look at the camera? Do I look at you? I've not done this before, so I will do both.
Yeah, whatever.
But I was, like, mid-thought, and then I saw you, and I was like, yeah, there we go. So, yeah, it was an easy meet. It was. Yeah.
It felt almost like, okay, this is what, from, like, as I'm thinking about it now, I'm going back to it, it felt almost like we were like, this is what I've been up to since I saw you last.
Yeah.
Which is wild since it was our first
friend,
meet.
Doesn't matter how much time, passes vibes.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, like, when people, and it's so, I saw something on TikTok that showed, like, something, I don't know if you're familiar with frequencies, right? Like, there's, like, 452, 4 or 528, for, like, these, like, and they showed one thing, and it was the thing where you hit it right, the ball there, and so it's hitting something, and it's showing the different levels of frequencies. And I'm not going to do this explanation any justice, but just go with me, okay? And so it's got one here, and it's like, this is 452, we'll say, and I'm not sure if that's the number. And then one here that's 512. And it's hitting the 512, trying to get the ball thing to move on the 452. And it's not. It won't move, right? And it's just hitting it. And then they take that one away, and then they bring a 452. So now they're both 452. And they're hitting this one, which is not attached to this one at all. And then the ball starts moving.
Yeah.
And it shows this is the best way to show, like, your vibe attracts your tribe. So whatever your frequency is, and that is like, I've been doing a lot of cord cutting, a lot of cutting out people that are on lower frequencies than me, because it really does drag you down, right? Like, when they say, meet me where I'm at,
right?
Like, that's not just a life thing, that is a frequency thing, right?
Yep.
Like, I will say I am, like, goes into spirituality, like, I am a higher frequency being. Like, I just live at a higher realm. And that's from the doing the work. It's from shedding the layers. It's from, show the lower vibrational energies, anything that I have worked through to live at a higher vibration. Like, that is just who I am, which goes into true self, which, as I said, we wanted to talk about. Okay?
I know.
Okay.
It's so good. Yeah, so I love that you brought up frequency, and exactly what you're talking about is resonance. So if you are picking up on something that is like you, that's you harmonizing, resonating with what's your true home energy that you're putting out. And so as we, like, conscientiously are like, okay, I understand that the way of nature is to spiral upwards. If you are really paying attention and you really are focusing on the heart and just being connected to all of life, there's nowhere to go but up. And so it's so beautiful, because it's like, the more that you can just understand that it's your nature to thrive, to have well-being, you are well-being, it's like you just get to a point where you can pick up on things around you now, and you're like, people. Like, it's like, oh, it's you.
Yes.
Oh, it's you. So it's just that idea of like, I love that all of this you can feel in your body.
Yes.
All of it are things that you can very quickly say this is a yes or this is a no. And then that's sort of how you're getting an idea of like who that true self is by your home frequency. Like you're just tuning in a little bit more every day to like, what is your nature? Because it's different for everybody, but it's all leading in the same direction.
Right.
So it's just really beautiful because I'm obsessed with how everybody's got their own unique path. Like everybody's like, your life it's precious. It's something that stands alone, something that's so unique. And yet you fit in with the whole. It's impossible for you to not have like this place where you're just effortlessly weaving in to the fun of life, to the beauty of life. And so it's like finding yourself is less about like trying to figure out what it is and more, oh, that just feels right in my body. Oh, these things aren't just in my imagination. They're meant to be experienced. Like, oh, like all these things I felt as a kid are actually meant to stay with me and be explored. And so it's just becomes so simple.
Sorry to interrupt. Like I just when you brought up the word resonates or resonate. You know what I mean? Like and again, like I something came up for me the other day where I was talking about the word resonance in itself and how it resonates, and it's not like it goes back to the theory. I want to say Plato's theory that like we are born, like we know everything and then we forget, and it's remembering, and that's why it's like, oh, that resonates with me because it's like, oh, I remember that, but there's no way of knowing, you know what I mean? Like, and so it's so wild that you just say that because it is, and even just describing the way like it was like, oh, I remember you. Yes. Like you resonated with me even though we've never met.
It's like something turns on. It's like a switch. It's like electricity is always on. The ability for the lights to power on is always there, but you're activating it because you're understanding that like this is a moment where it's relevant to your life. So we all, like as humans, we all have access to the same genetic code. We all have the same ability to experience all the same things, but what's relevant for you, like what your life is about and the themes you explore and like what lights you up, that's going to be telling you what is meant to flicker on. Right.
And see, when you say it's like that's a spark, and that's exactly, and I think we talked about that when we talked about the movie Soul and how you have, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, oh, that's the spark. And so it's all different ways of saying the same thing, but it's like meeting you. Okay, spark. Like, okay, there goes that, like that channel gets fired on, you know? And it's like, okay, now what path are we going down?
Right.
So wild.
Yeah. And it's like, it's beautiful because it's not just an indicator of like, okay, yes, and like more of this, but it's also, there are clues that are given to us so that we can follow that trail and we can build on it and we can understand. It's like it's almost like a hide and seek game with yourself where you're like, you put the clues out and you put some like snacks and like some things along the way to keep you going, but you're astonished again and again by how magnificent the journey is and how like your life was really supposed to all come to this moment.
Right.
And it's always this moment. And so the exploration is where it's at, like not trying to achieve like enlightenment or just, I mean, all these things are beautiful. They're amazing topics and things like that to consider, but really understanding right now what's flickering on for you, which is such a fun way of saying it. I've never talked about it that way before. But it's just, this moment always contains the magic. This moment has something for you. And the more that you're like acknowledging it and saying, okay, I got you, I'm paying attention, the more it will happen.
Yeah.
And things will start to feel really supportive and really just fun.
Yeah.
Which is, in my opinion, what we're here for.
Right. Like I have always been shown it, and like we talked a little bit about like I channel, right? And like the way that it's shown to me versus like it's being able to translate information like to other people in a way that they can understand it from whatever part of their journey that they're on. So like it's when you say like the little like a scavenger hunt or something, like it's like usually for me it comes up as puzzle pieces, right? Like so it's like, okay, here's like the missing piece or here's the key or you know, like, and it's just like, and I know like it all comes back to like everything is by design and it's just picking up the pieces.
Yeah.
And you will wind up, and that's what I always say, is you will wind up where you're supposed to be. It depends on if you take like the straight and narrow or the long and windy, right? But you're going to wind up where you're supposed to be. And that's when it's like, okay, well, if it's meant to be and if it's destined, it's going to happen, right? Like, and you sign, like, you know, you go to your, like, I say, like, the council, right? Like, imagine the council in the sky when you're, like, figuring out your life experience and what it's going to be. Like, I want to experience this, I want to experience this, I want to experience this. But then you're giving your spirit team liberty to, and how they give those to you. Does that sound like, you know, like, so it's like, I want to experience more compassion is going to come up, right? Compassion in my life, right? Like, I'm a very compassionate person, but like, just that, using that as an example. Or confidence is what I put on my Gratitude Tuesday, right? Like, so it's through trials and tribulations, you know what I mean? You don't just get, like, sprinkle on confidence, right?
You
like,
get the opportunity.
Time and time again, so you build that. So then that's like, okay, now you've mastered that. That's when it becomes like self-mastery, right? And this is kind of all of the things that are on the, you mentioned enlightenment, right? Like, the path to enlightenment, or the path, it's self-mastery kind of is what I think of when I think of enlightenment, right?
Mastering the self is literally it.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, it is. It's literally because you're the individual, you're the person, you're also spirit, you're everything, whatever you want to call it, but what's relevant is this life we're living right now.
Right.
So yes, we're connected to it all, and we're going to learn how to be in more tune with that, but this is where it's at, and understanding yourself. I want you to finish your thought, but there's something specific to that I wanted to share because it feels so fundamental for me. Or should I just
go
say
for
it?
Yeah, go for it.
So I'm a big fan. There's a material that was channeled in the 80s. It's called the Ra material, the Ra contact, and essentially it was
like RAH, like
RA.
Okay.
Yeah. So from the Egyptian name, the Ra god, they gave it to that. But there is a relationship.
I have to introduce you to somebody because this is interesting.
Yeah. So, but what I love about this particular material is that it's called the Law of One, and that is that the idea is that there is only one thing, and that one thing allows for many experiences, and then you get the polarity and all of that. So, but the way they describe the evolution of consciousness of life, which is my jam. So so the thing about it is we get so complicated when we think about our journey, and when we think about, like, how am I going to become the person I want to be, and like, how am I going to grow and overcome these challenges. And it's really, really, really beautiful that life is challenging, but it's not complicated ever. We make it complicated when the mind gets involved. And so the Law of One says that there's 3 steps to your evolution. That is to know the self, to accept the self, and to be the self. And I'm a little bit obsessed with it because the way that I have understood it and really embodied it in my life is that to know yourself means you really look at yourself honestly. You see the patterns. You see the things, whether you would judge them good or bad. You just notice how you kind of always are or have been, or maybe recently, like what keeps showing up. Well, like, how do you keep responding to life? Whatever. What are the constants in your life that seem to always be there? But then to accept the self is what I call unconditional love. It's not saying, oh, I'm going to love the parts that are easy to love, and then call the parts that I don't like not me.
Yeah.
Like, yes, like, we're not our experiences. We don't label ourselves that way, but it's not healthy or realistic to say the parts that I don't want to look at are not me. And really what happens is unconditional love is just agreeing with creation. It's saying it's already exists, therefore it's already accepted. It's already loved because it exists. That's you. There's no way that you can get it right. There's no way you can screw it up. There's no way that you can ever become more of who you are. You are. And it's by getting on board with the idea that your life's expression and its unique journey is exactly why you came, and it's exactly where you need to be. But then bringing in that concept of, like, and I'm just going to welcome this and embrace it. That's, to me, the step 2. And then to be yourself is to be your authentic true self, which is what you were vibing on this morning.
Yep.
But the thing is that, like, everyone's out to be their authentic self. But if you don't develop that relationship where you love all of who you are, what you have been, what you are now, and what you want to become, and whatever, you don't have the freedom to be who you are. You can't, because there's too much holding yourself away. And I get goosebumps. Like, I've had goosebumps most of this conversation, but, like, I get real ones right here where it's like, it's the one thing that we're trying so hard to push away from, which is we live in such a time of like be the best person you can be, and just like self-development and all of that has kind of just taken over. It's super mainstream, and it's beautiful. It's pointing in the right direction, but it can get kind of crazy out there when you are trying to be so perfect and you're, instead of being whole.
Yeah.
And once you understand that there's nothing to push away, there's only more to love. And once you do love it, it'll release on its own, and it'll allow in more of what you want to come through. That's like, it's the hack. It's the key. So
yes,
true self.
It's
being your whole self, and understanding that there's nothing's gone wrong in the world with you or anything. There's just more exploration and more choosing in a way that resonates.
Yes.
And everybody's here for different reasons. So
yes. Thank you.
So everyone's doing amazing. Like if you're ever like having a rough day, if you're ever feeling like question mark, how can this be okay? Just like hit me up, because I'm telling you, it's your nature to continue to explore who you are, and that's the only place satisfaction and fulfillment will come from. And that's the only place that like true solutions come from.
Yeah.
And so it's just a beautiful time to be alive and to have this conversation. And yeah.
I agree. And I think like when you say that, it brings up so much for me, because I have been on this journey for a couple of years now. And like more so like this, like where I was given the question, who am I? After things ending, and we talked about this a little bit when we first met. And like where I was called to answer the question, who am I? And that's when everything was stripped out of my life, so that I had was put into isolation to figure out just that. And there was so much darkness. There was so much darkness in that time for me, where it was like I did not want to go on. And it was, and I remember like you saying this makes me remember having a conversation with my therapist at the time, and like saying something, because I was told that I didn't love myself. And I was all like, that's fun. Like, not by my therapist, but, like, it was just kind of like, well, this is self-love. And I was like, I do fucking love myself. Like, and then it was like,
and
no,
if anybody would know, it'd be you.
Right. And it was like, but not enough. And it was like, so when like I was put in this situation, and it was kind of like, this person or this thing wasn't me. My needs weren't being met in a way when I was looking outside of myself for, like seasonal depression, or just kind of like bits and pieces, like parts of a life. And it was the lesson for me was to like I was gifted more self-love by choosing me, because like this other person wasn't choosing me.
Right.
And I was like, won't say more self-love things.
Just keep it on.
And talking to my therapist, like, and through it, it was very much like, well, I was like, no, I've always loved myself. Like, it was harder to love myself through the depression, but like at the time I was going through depression because I felt like I was missing something from my life. Like, it was like there was this void of like something was supposed to happen and it didn't, and it got me to this place. And we talked a little bit about like that's when I wound up going like my naturopathic, like homeopathic doctor, and just like this like put me in this state. I was like, no, I've always loved myself, because I've truly always enjoyed who I am.
Yeah.
Like that started, when I stopped drinking, I don't know if I told you that I've been sober for 6 years.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But like on that, as I decided, I stopped drinking because I liked myself more sober, and it got to the point where, okay, like I did genuinely like myself.
That's worthy of a pause right there. You made a decision based on really appreciating and loving yourself more. And I do want to like just mention that demonstrating self-love doesn't always have to feel lovey. It doesn't have to feel good. It's really about being with you, being there for you, no matter how you feel.
Right.
So if you're in a place that's depressed, you're not going to just have these lovey feelings come in and like huddle over and feel that. Like you might have moments of that, but I want to make it like really clear if anyone's struggling with any kind of difficult emotions, anxiety, things like that. I navigated through many, many years of depression with all kinds of coping things. And the point is that it's you being able to just be with yourself and say, this is where we're at and I got you.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to go any further.
Yes.
It's about not looking away. It's like with a little kid. You're not going to see them throw a tantrum and be like, I don't like that. Like, I'm not gonna, I mean, sometimes you do have to ignore them, but like, you're not going to sit there and be like, you can't exist, you can't be here because you're having a minute, you're having a moment. Like, no, you acknowledge it. Okay, like, you're having this right now. That's okay. And you know it'll pass. And it's this idea of there aren't parts that you can't be with yourself. So it might feel sometimes that you're not loving yourself, but let me tell you, if you're here today listening to this, you do. It's just being aware that you don't understand how strong you are, and you're going to have lots of experiences in life. But the more that you're just okay, it's this being at ease with what's coming up. No matter what the feelings are, you're just kind of in the backdrop saying like, and I'm not going anywhere, like, I got me.
Yeah.
Then as things start to make more sense and calm down and maybe start to bring in more harmony, you'll naturally feel those good feelings arise because you've already demonstrated that. I don't even exactly know how to put it, except for that you just are here for you.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like you build a foundation for all the good feelings and all the good experiences to come in by simply just being okay with who you are at all times. And the more you do it, the less you feel like you need to, because you just are becoming natural with who you are.
Yes.
And who you are is like going to feel good. You're going to fall in love with yourself. The more that you pay attention, the more you're going to be like, yeah, I kind of love me. Like, I kind of, that's like where charisma comes from and things like that, where people think people have magnetic personalities and whatever. They're just people who are really good with who they are.
Yes.
And so,
flaws and all. And I have to say, like, that's when, like, I know I'm far from perfect, but I love it anyways. And that is, like, for sure. And, like, it's so, like, you described exactly how it was for me, you know? Like, it was, like, having to love myself through depression, having to be there and hug myself. And, like, and that's what I said to my therapist, is, like, I've always loved myself. It was harder during the depression, but the lesson for me was, like, to love myself, like, this other person lacked compassion, right? And that's so funny. Like, I was like, oh, I'm putting it together as you're talking. Like, that's why compassion came up.
Yeah.
Because that's a thing. Like, and the lesson for this other person was the lacking of compassion because they didn't have it for themselves.
Right. And it's always the case.
Right. And then so, like, I had to love myself enough to let that go and to, you know, so, like, I was gifted. And that's when I talk about gifts and personality traits and all of these things, I was gifted more self-love. And at the time, my, you know, like, my what's the word I'm looking, sarcastic self was like, yay, more self-love, like, you know, but thank you, yay, more self-love. Like, there cannot be enough, right? Because at the end of it, like, we are just ourselves, and I get to be able to love myself because there's not everybody does. There are so many, you know, they want to shadow them. They, like, the shadow aspects are so hard for people to hug, and that is literally, like, so you're like that is literally
in the
beginning.
Beginning. But I do want to, like, put, and you know this from experience, but, like, it seems like such a big deal, and it seems so dark and scary and, like, icky to want to love those hard parts. The challenging things, the things that have been suppressed for so long and not looked at because they're, you know, like, that's why they call it a shadow, is because you're just not willing to put awareness on it. It's already been judged.
Right.
Stay the fuck over there. But it only takes, like, a moment or two of realizing that these things are safe to be with.
Right.
That they're actually not, like, big dark entities that live inside of you trying to, like, make you, like, a bad person. It's just the fear of not seeing who you really are. You think you're big and bad and scary because you've had experiences when you were younger. You've had imprints in your cells and in your emotions are held in your body, and you're carrying that with you. And any time that something that would resemble that kind of judgment will come up, it'll be lived again in your body. And the thing is that it just takes one moment of just letting your defenses down and just being with it. Yeah.
Yes.
And just exposing it. You turn the light on.
Yep.
And it takes all the power away. And what happens is, if it's not relevant for you, if it's not supportive of your true nature, it will just disappear.
Yep.
And if it's meant to transform into something new and beautiful, it will on its own because it's your nature.
Yes.
So there's really nothing ultimately difficult or dark and scary about being with those parts. It's just until you've done it.
Right. And I think that, and it's so, for somebody, like, I've held on to things for so long. I wanted to, like, not shine light on it for so long that is the moment I finally surrendered to it and be like, okay, let's look at this. This keeps coming up. But that takes a lot of self-awareness, you know, and there are just, like, and that's, like, yes. And it's like, okay, let's take a look at this. And you don't have to do it. You don't have to admit shit to anybody.
Yeah, no, it's better if you don't. Like if the right person needs to come alongside and like help you process something or be there for you, it will happen.
Well, and in my experience, it's going to happen. Yeah. So because it is about enlightenment and it is about that. So you're going to keep getting these lessons until you take you know, like, until you shine light on it. Okay. So it's like, but then the moment you do, like, I mean, I've spent months, weeks, you know, like surrendering not surrendering to what's coming up. And then the moment you do, I was like, it's just like that. And it's like, oh my God. And then it just creates this space for new, better experiences. And that's like, so then that goes back into frequency, right? So like, say that this is so, and everything, and I always say has a frequency, like fear, like guilt and shame is the lowest that you can feel, right? To me, that's like hell, right? So like, I had all of this guilt and shame that I was feeling, so it felt like I was living in hell. Right. And then the moment I was able to like look at that and be like, you know what I mean? Like, it raises your vibration, right? So then you go up more, right?
It's like the cork bobbing up because you're not holding it down anymore.
Right, and you're like,
it's
everything
just, you
is
literally
about to go
let
up.
go.
That is ascension, right? So it's like, if we talk about, like, you know, like, I say, like, oh, I can be an ascension coach. It's like, okay, I can tell you what your block is. This is the frequency you're at. This is where you know what I mean? And how you do, and these are the things, right? Like, this is just, like, these are the things that I have been gifted through experience is the thing. People want to be like, oh, why? It is through experience.
only because that's a beautiful
because I know what it feels like to, you know what I'm saying? Like, the only way you know is to go through it. I've worked through a lot of guilt and shame in order to be here, and everything in between, right? Like, enlightenment is the highest thing that you can feel. Like, I reside in joy, which is really up there because I have worked through from the bottom up.
Yeah, you have to be able to experience both sides of the coin in order to feel the fullness. So, I really like that you brought that up about, and now I'm going to totally forget what.
Guilt, shame, frequency, holding it, like, everything holds a frequency, every emotion.
Yeah, I completely, it'll come back, it always comes back to me.
Okay. And I want to say, like, even going to, like, when we, like, I was saying about the, like, you don't, you know, like, it's, and an example that I had earlier today was just thinking about, like, there takes vulnerability to even admit some shit to yourself. Yeah. To admit that things weren't, you know, like, the way that they should be, or, like, you weren't talked to the right way as a child. And, you know, like, and I often say, like, I have had to reparent myself because I had two parents and they had their, you know what I mean, their own issues. I love my mother. My father's no longer here, but, like, I had to work through accepting and realizing, and for, like, and I think I told you where I told my daughter, I was like, I'm working on reparenting myself because I didn't have what I needed. It's, I need your help in telling me what it is that you need, because I don't know, you know, and I don't want to fuck that up. So, you know, and, like, and that's the thing, like, and it's just coming back to, like, the being able to admit that, because, like, I can and know that I was still very blessed throughout my childhood, you know, like, to be able to, now I'm losing it, like, to, like, it's just the vulnerability to admit to not having the experience, you know what I mean? Because I can still love my parents and know that they weren't what I needed, but how can you not, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's almost like a certain kind of honesty where you're not denying that you had a real experience that completely informed the rest of your life, and now you have this unique set of
or say, like, negative self-talk, right? So it goes to negative self-talk that came from somewhere. It's not your voice, but it's somebody's voice along the way that you picked up while you were still learning and still developing, and it's having to reparent that negative self-talk and be like, oh, true, you know, like, okay, like, I had a client yesterday that was like, oh, I like the pain, and I was all like, and he was like, I'm like, like, he was saying it's good. I'm like, is it though? Like, is it? I don't know, like, maybe just be kind to yourself.
Like the physical pain?
Yes, yes, but if you transfer that, right? Like you translate that, I was like, you do, like you like punishment.
It's oftentimes, because I know that when I was like a teenager, I didn't do a lot of self-harm, but I did have a few occasions with that. But I know that the way that I talked to myself was extremely hateful, and it was very, very destructive. And what I always pick up on that stuff is that sort of pain feels better than what's going on under the surface. So it's a sense of actually, it does feel good.
Yes.
Because it's a higher feeling than, it's like going from like despair into rage.
Of an emotional pain is what I feel like when people self-harm and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like this is easier. It's something physical because I can't describe or I can't emotion.
Thing because there's a disconnect with what's going on under the surface. And it's understandable because, I mean, this is a pattern in people.
Yes.
But I do think that like that's also it's sort of in the same ballpark where like any kind of addictions come from, whether they're like really damaging, like harmful addictions, or they're just things like scrolling on the internet or whatever. Any way where we're sort of trying to mute the moment because we feel uncomfortable with what's going on is just a reach for something outside of us.
Yes.
We all do it.
That was a lesson for sure.
We all do it. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just having the awareness to understand, oh, okay, I get what I'm doing now. That's where the doors open. And now you have the ability to walk through and have a different experience and actually become the chooser, which I think is what all of this is really about. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the tools for self-love and you can say, okay, these are the things that I can do that I know really support me. But if you're not bringing your conscientious choice and your I would just say I like to call it directing your will. So like everybody has a certain amount of will inside of them that they can sort of bring in and like execute it and navigate your life. And that's where we understand creating intentions around what we're going to do is the most powerful part of actually doing it, because what you decide is how it's going to be is how it will be. And so it's this sort of like we get to a point where like we understand the healing journey and we start to feel like, okay, I can really trust myself. I feel like I have like a strong foundation now. It's like always going to be a process, but now I can start bringing in my true self and start navigating life and having the life that I want to live like on purpose and not just be perpetually healing for the rest of our lives. Because there's always going to be things you could be fully healed yourself and not even realize it, but be picking up on like collective stuff and like still be taking that on nonstop. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just at some point this is what I want to say. The greatest source of power within you is the power to be fully you in the world. And if you just do that, everyone in your field, like everyone around you is just going to automatically benefit from it.
Right.
And it keys on to them, switches on the light that like, oh, there's options here. Like, oh, I could actually do these things for me. You become the living, breathing example of what light is in the world. And that's where it's at.
Yep.
That's where it's at. Because again, like you're meant to just, yes, forgive and like always as it arises, like heal the things that need to be healed, but you don't have to always be so focused on, there's always going to be more subconscious stuff, that comes up, but it'll come up when it's relevant. You don't have to dig for it. It'll come up, it'll show itself, and then you get to be with it. But then you also get to always create your life. You get to always have the life that you from a core want to live. It's built into your world. Everything that you need to be supported and to thrive in your passions and your curiosities and everything, it's all there. And you just get to recognize that it's you.
Yes. 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 And I feel like I had to say it's so much easier said than done. Like for because and I think of it as lessons, right? Like, and I've been through okay, and then sometimes it's like, oh, we missed a spot, and so it will come back around again, and I'll have to go through it all over again. I have the ability to be able to see, you know what I mean? See my lessons as they're happening sometimes, or when they're rounded up, as they're coming to an end, it's kind of like, okay, I'm gifted the,
you have the little graduation cap.
And I just see oh, okay. and then it's like, okay, redo, almost like we missed a part, we can learn this better, you know, like just to have them. That's why I always say we'll have a very well-rounded experience. Like, and I have not lived my life in chronological order, but it will be like I've done everything that I've wanted to do by the end of it, you know. I will have no regrets. I have, you know, like, it just doesn't look, it never looked like what, you know, like what I call the American dream, you know, like, because like I was married and that, and, you know, had the kids very early on and, you know, like, and now like, but it's just this, I am getting to live everything, just not in the way that it normally would be, right? And like if I had waited to get married in my 30s, like I wouldn't be living the life that I'm living now. And then I have to be like, oh, like, and now this is for me. It's like a whole like coming, like, because I turned 41 in a couple of weeks. Like it's like, I know, like when they say the youth is wasted on the young, right? Like, and I feel like old saying that, but I am so, and this goes to the confidence and the courage and all of the things to be able to truly enjoy where I'm at and not take any of it for granted, you know, like be like, oh, like to be able to be who I am out in the world right now, like as me instead, you know, and having dropped all of the insecurities of being 20 something and all, you know, like, and just be the people that are meant for me will find me and like, if not, get out of the fucking
Craigslist.
way.
It was not Craigslist.
It was not.
But it's way more fun to
see. Even still exists?
I think it does. I think it's still gross too. It's just way more fun to say. I'm always gonna call it that now.
Right? Oh.
Yeah. I think that there's. It's good to see, like, especially even mainstream, how those ideas are just really falling away. Like there's most people kind of understand now that like the idea of like the perfect life or like having it all is, it's just a shadow thing to chase. Yes. It's like, okay, it's not that having any of those things are wrong or not desired, but everybody aches for something. And that's something you can't put on a piece of paper and hit milestones. Like that is the living, I call it like the hero's journey. It's just, it's an adventure. It's wild, but it's meaningful. And every single experience you'll ever have is always crafted to put you in the direction so that you can finish this life with no regrets. And you can do that now. You can have that now, because satisfaction comes from obviously within, but it comes from a place of just understanding there's nowhere else to go. You're already home. You're already like, there's fun to be had. There's things to explore, but like you're good. Yeah. Like you're good. And you can see that like you really are a gift, that your unique upbringing, your personality, your preferences, the things that feel interesting to you right now and the things that pain you right now, like they're all necessary to be a beautiful piece of the puzzle. It's just the nature of the human experience. Right. Like everybody's a hero. Everybody's got the same themes. They're just uniquely yours. So you had your upbringing and I had mine, but we all experience fear, rejection, you know, like loneliness, like all of the things. They're human themes. Yes.
It's so funny that you say that, because that brings me back to like talking about guilt and shame. And I remember speaking to somebody once about that, and they had said like they were like, he made X amount of money, and then somebody else was like, oh, this is made less, but it was like, my money spends the same as yours, right? And like, to me, I was like, you say that, but if you change that to guilt and shame, like my guilt and shame feels the same as yours, regardless of what you do. You know what I mean? Like, I've never done anything horrifying. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a good person. Like, I don't, you know, like I've just always been like, but that doesn't mean that I don't feel the
it's a
same
frequency.
Guilt and shame as like, or, you know, like as somebody who has done horrifying things, right? Like, it's just our own idea of what those things are, right? We hold it the same because it's a frequency. It doesn't matter the uniqueness of that experience that caused us to feel that.
Yeah.
That is something which is that goes into karma. And like, you know, you can only feel karma if you think you did something, like if you did something wrong, which I think is kind of terrible. But
I think that as we're like really getting to know, especially even from like a scientific perspective, how frequencies work in relationship, that they are emotions hold their frequencies. And that's why you can like listen to something with binaural beats or just, I don't know the names of them all, but like you can actually tune with your brain and set certain emotional frequencies in your state if you get really quiet and you tune to that. But the idea is that all of the convoluted stuff that creates more of the convoluted stuff, it's all wrapped up in a tight wad of judgment. And once you release the idea of judging, separation disappears. That's what this is all about. And what's at the core of that? Separation from yourself, the idea that you're separate from yourself. So once you do the inner work of you just taking care of you and being good with you and letting the things around you just hold on a minute, like I'm just going to focus on me and take accountability and like responsibility for how I want to be on this planet, then these ideas just start to fall away. Like the idea that like a serial killer is like so evil and all this stuff. Yeah, it's not great. Like I totally agree. Also, you can't know another person's journey and understand what chemically created their experience from the time they were able to form one.
That's so funny that you bring that up.
And I don't call myself a survivor because I've long since survived. I'm a thriver, I guess, from a religious cult. And the number that they can do on the brain, that they do on the brain, in terms of trying to make everything so evil and dirty and gross and wrong, things that are pure and good. It's just all born of ideas of separating, ideas of making something wrong. And ultimately, what matters, yes, it matters that we have like peace and harmony and we can trust that our streets are like not going to be ridden by serial killers. However, in a bigger picture, we're really just looking at the idea of I'm not perpetuating more need for fear and shame in the world because I actually understand that this is my journey and what I put out into the world there'll be more of. And so you can only be an example to the world. You can't heal another person who's had a mentally screwed up whatever. But at the end of the day, if you just begin to relax your nervous system and you just start to see the world with like sort of an open mind of everybody's just out there doing the best they can. I know I am. And I'd prefer to be like on someone's side and like a reason for them to maybe make a better change. Like not trying to tell them what to do, but like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's really easy to get like triggered and offended by some stranger who just shows up out of nowhere and like, where did you come from? But like, it takes a lot of strength to just relax and say like, that person can have their experience, but they can see through me that I'm not picking up on that. Like I'm not buying into your story. And this is where I think true strength really comes from, is that you've created such a foundation of inner peace that you just don't need to respond. Because you understand you're not separate from that person. You are connected in the big picture. Like you live on the same planet they do. You want the best for them and you don't know their journey. So you have no business trying to make assumptions about it.
Yeah.
That's a stretch in terms of like the whole world, but that's where we're going. If you like really understand what the next stage in evolution for humanity is, that's where we're going. Because well, it's just the nature of things. But you practice it in your own heart and in your own world, and then you start to realize how invincible you feel when you are exercising that, because you really are. The human spirit is just, it's just very, very, it's very inspiring. It's very courageous, and one person does change the world, and it's you, and it's every day. Yes. So congratulations. But
that is something, one person at a time, right? Like that's all, just spread the message, right? You know, like whatever it is, like this is it. And then I always say like, we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
Be kind,
oh, that's
you know?
cute.
Like, at the end of the day, like, we're just all trying to, like, we're all here doing it for the first time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I say that we know of, right? Like, I know that I've been here many times, but
not
like,
as you here.
Right,
yeah,
in this experience. So, like, I'm learning as I go, right?
Yeah.
And as is everybody else. And, like, I like to believe everybody's doing the best that they can with the information that they have, right? And we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah.
Be kind. Like, that is that. But it's so funny that you're talking about those things and, like, serial killer, and because I swear to God.
It was, like, as far as I could go.
No, like, but that is... I have these conversations with my son all of the time. And literally on Sunday, so 2 days ago, he brought up exactly that. And about, like, there not being any... like, people are not inherently good or inherently bad.
Right.
And I say this before, and I was all like, well... like, I'm looking for the exception, right? Because I do think that, like, is there an exception? Like, this is so, like, it's a very, like, is there? Because what about sociopaths? Like, they, you know, and, like, but we were talking, like, about, and he was, how we got on the subject of perspective, right?
It's fascinating.
Like, and because he wants to be he wants to make movies. And so, like...
so he's not understanding the psychology behind a character, why they are going to be...
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
yeah.
So in him, like, when we're talking about things, he's like, he refers to, like, he's like, oh, and did you see, like, act 1, act 2? I was like... I don't look at movies that way, but like the way his brain works he sees everything as if it's a movie, you know what I mean? Like, and like we were actually talking about a movie, but like, so he's like, well, like, he's like, you liked act 1, but act 2 and 3 could go. And I was like, sure. But it's like, it's the perspectives of like everybody, you know what I mean? Like has their, and I was like, and absolutely, that's kind of a thing for life. Like there's your story, there's my story, and then there's like, the truth, right? Like, it always falls into something between, but and nobody can be, like, neither person can be wrong. It's just their experience, right?
Right.
You're experiencing it through your set of whatever that you've got, you know what I mean? Like, through your beliefs, through your things. So, like, when there's two people, like, my experience is mine, and that doesn't make it false.
It makes
just
it
relevant. It's different from yours.
Right. It makes it relevant for you.
Right.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing is, if we could just do one thing, and that's little by little get away from the idea of right and wrong and just what's relevant and what's not, you'll have it. Because what happens is, first of all, it's a waste of time to get into things that aren't like even, you can't do anything about them. Like you will know when you can do something because you'll either be inspired or it'll be in front of you. But like all these like serial killers out in the world, it's like it's fun to philosophize. Is that?
Sure.
Yeah.
We're going to go with it.
Create ideas around it. But like if you're not like in the medical field dealing with them and like, you know, whatever, if you're not in the judicial system, like really they're ideas that we have that like, it's kind of like fantasy. It's fun to play with the ideas of it. How dark can the dark be? But if you can just look at something as like, I know that I know myself the only way anybody can know myself. And I've been with me every moment of my life. I remember what it was like to be in kindergarten and to like interact with that kid and have these feelings and just how that shaped me forever and whatever. You'll notice that if something is meant to be discerned, it'll show up. It'll be because it's relevant to you. It has nothing to do with the other person. So it's all about discerning what to look at and not judging it. They're totally different. And judging is when you bring in your personal angst and you're like, and I'm going to make you wrong. And actually, it feels kind of good to be good and you wrong.
I was like, ooh, that is something I need to work on because it does turn into like, no.
We all do it. We all do it.
So there's you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but that's where like, that's the seed of victim mentality.
Yes.
And it produces nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, nothing. We all have it. We all do. But awareness is what allows for transcending that. And what you become, if you're talking about like mastering the self and really becoming so free and so joyous in who you really are, you'll notice you're staying in your lane and you're just paying attention to what's relevant for you.
Yes.
And judgment doesn't mean anything anymore because it doesn't directly inform where you're going. Holding on to like things that happened to us in our family however many years ago, it's informing us every day if we hold on to that.
Right.
And
it's shaping the way we see the world.
I remember what I was going to say forever ago. we have this like tendency, especially in the Western world, to just like think that we're validated by like what we know and like what we've studied, and like we have all these certifications over like I'm qualified to do this and I'm qualified to know this, and all of those things are relevant and like important in their own way. But what actually has power is your experiential knowledge. When you experience something, because that's what you were talking about, and that's like where it comes full circle. All these ideas that we can get wrapped up in our minds about like how wrong things can be, they're not producing anything good.
Yeah.
They're just giving us, like, they're just giving us stress.
Yeah.
And that's the question I always want to get to is like, what is the most direct path to my joy and to like creating more of what I want to see in the world? And if you're talking about being a source of inspiration and change and beauty in the world, then you're only paying attention to what's relevant for you, and you're not judging basically ever.
Yeah.
Because it's a distraction and it's a separation. And you'll notice things sort of naturally resolve around you as you just let them be while you bring out your love, your best.
Yes.
So it's like this sort of, I know it's kind of like a big idea and a big topic, but I always like to bring things back to like the root, and the root of your power is to stay in your lane, seeing yourself as wholly a gift to the world, and letting everybody find their way.
Yes.
And if you are inspired to have a direct change, like say you all of a sudden get inspired to like really help human victims of human trafficking, and it's like an actual cause, and you're like, okay, there needs to be an actual solution, those real solutions will come through who you are, and you will be so connected, and you will have such an influence. You will be on the solution side of the coin, instead of focusing on, it's so bad that these people are being like, yes, it's not good, right? I'm using this as an example because I was actually in this field for a long time. But when you're able to just hop from making this one thing so bad and just being on the solution side, not only are you actually changing the lives and bringing healing into the world, but you're sort of taking focus away from what's wrong and creating a way more powerful, it's
and
like
productive.
It flips the scale. Instead of it being such a power struggle between the problem and the solution, it becomes solely solutions.
Yes.
And
it's like transmuting the energy.
Right. And then I know I'm always trying to find the way like to make it sound like it can land for everybody, but it's just like this idea of you're going to get more of what you focus on, but you're also going to be on the radar of other people who want the same solution as you when you're just in that space.
Yes.
So do you see how this ties into like your personal life?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be about like changing the world. It can just be about how you do you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden life takes care of life. Because we're all adults with the same guidance and the same abilities. Like maybe the serial killer really is. We'll just go back to him.
I know. I like
somebody needed a break today. But like, because you're not a serial killer if you're listening to this, and if you are, like, you're doing all right. So like, I just think that like we really can access our power so much more quickly and more beautifully than we get, because we make it all about what everybody else is doing. And
sorry, I'm totally thinking about the whole serial killer thing. I was like, we keep saying that, like, is it going to be like
does he need a name?
Is it even going to be like make it, or is it going to be banned because we keep saying that?
No.
Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, no,
there's not many view people. Anyways.
But. Yeah, no, it's all good. Like, this is the thing, is you have to be able to just play. You have to be able to just not take it all that seriously. So if you can make someone who is out to murder people just like an idea and a topic and not like get real serious about it, you're doing good. Because like, honestly, because now we are talking about it.
I know, I'm just like...
But okay, there's a reason for this. This is the reason, okay? I'm going to bring you home. We're ready. We got this. We're going to do this. If you have things going on in your life right now that you feel like you can't let go and they feel so wrong, and you feel like, man, there's just, if I could just fix this one part of me, I could really find some peace.
Yes.
anybody can find peace, even a serial killer. And I'm not saying this to make a joke, really, because I've heard numerous stories of people who have been in prison for horrendous things, and they have found their path of light.
Yes.
Because they were in prison. Because they were able to become still and sit with their humanity and choose differently and rewire their brain in the process. So, my sister sent me this gift for Christmas last year, and it was like, this is a book to remind you you're not the worst mom in the world. And I'm a really good mom, but like, I can be a little hard on myself sometimes, and I was going through a little rough patch, and she just sent it to me as like a way to just relax and be funny. But it's all these animals and some of the things that animals can do to their young, and it was like, and you don't do that. And
but
it's just
so wild.
That's the point. That's the point I'm making, is like, we go to extremes to make a very simple point that like nothing, it's not an all or nothing game we're playing. It's you're okay. Like,
it's so funny. Well, and it's like, it's so wild that you say that, because that was another conversation that me and my son had. Was I was like, man, because like eagles, right? We talk birds, right? Because I'm a bird nerd. Like, you're talking eagles, and I was all like, man, and then the owl, because there's snow. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, Oliver, did you see? Like, there's just no way. No, he's not on Facebook.
You said Oliver.
That's forever his name now. Oliver.
Sorry, dude. That's my fault.
And he was like, no, and I was like, did you know that like owls can be mean? Like, I watched a video and there was just an eagle in its nest, and because this like, I really am a bird nerd, I just watch bird videos. There was an eagle in its nest, and a great horned owl just came by and attacked it and just like hit it and just flew off. And he's like, that's all animals, Mom. Animals are dicks.
It's a brutal world out there. It you know what, it's a demonstration of all things that are possible, and it's the same with people, and it's the same with everything. We live in an infinite universe. There's going to be a mixed bag. So what do you want to focus on? Do you want to focus on how beautiful they are as they fly over the horizon, or do you want to like watch them murdering babies?
That is so funny. There's so many full circle moments that are happening right now, because I remember sitting. Like,
Nature's
it was
a good
last
teacher.
Summer, and I'm watching we're watching like a bird in the sky, and I think it was an eagle, and it was like, like food, like, right, trying to get a fish, and I'm like, well, like, this would go through the whole, like, what's good, like, is inherently good and inherently bad, which it depends on which one you're rooting for. Do you want the eagle to eat, or do you want the fish to survive? You know, like, they each serve their own purpose, right? So which one are you rooting for? And then that's kind of like the good versus evil, and and like, that is a lesson that I find so hard time and time again, is because, and it comes to perspective, but like, for me, it's just like, and then when I go like, oh, I need to hear these things, because for me it's emotion based, and that's judgment, right? Like, well, you hurt me, so you're bad. Like, no, like, you did what was best for you, and that's okay. But respectfully, when I do what's best for me, don't be coming at me. You know what I mean? Like, this is how we learn. Like,
it's so funny, because in nature is such a good teacher, and I include us all the peoples with nature.
We are animals,
but like the ones without complicated minds that just go about living their lives, like, they don't rise up and be like, stand up for the fish. Like, they're just, there's no thought nor any idea of something has gone wrong. And when there is quote unquote pain, like there is an animal being attacked for dinner, like, their bodies and their systems go into so many miraculous modes where they don't suffer. Animals don't suffer. They experience pain. They experience sensations, but they don't suffer, because suffer is when you're engaging with feeling something's wrong. There's pain, and then there's suffering. And animals don't actually suffer. They only experience pain, and their bodies know exactly what to do. And it's also a brilliant way where like pets and things can just sit, they're ready to go. They're ready to, like, maybe they've been suffering for an illness, but like, they'll stay alive for their owner, because like they're able to just be there for the sake of another, because they're not in their heads like having an issue with it. They're just being who they are. It's very, very, both are beautiful, because
I don't like that one. My dog, I was like, I don't like that one.
my sister went through a very, within 6 months, lost both of her dogs, and one of them she had for 17 years. And it's, the beauty of life is that both sides are right where they need to be. It's hard to say it without like taking away from the beauty. It's hard to like find the right words in the human language to describe the awe of nature. But it's, and I know. And like, it's okay, because this is life. Like, life is really living a moment and really being available for what's coming up. And it's beautiful. And like, just like it's a privilege to be on this side of that relationship with an animal, that animal received the wholeness of who you are and is still with you. And that's the nature of life. The nature of life, it says it takes two sides to have an experience, and both are right.
Yes.
And that's how we evolve and we learn and we grow. Because how could we ever become aware of other ways to explore if there wasn't the darker side to navigate and to say, oh, where will we go next? It's just, you know, you don't have to be in a place where you feel okay with it. That's a huge important part. Like, it's important and it's meaningful. That's what matters.
Yeah.
And as you just allow the rightness of life to just sort of like blanket you, and just like you can kind of relax into it, you will feel the intelligence, you will feel the wisdom of how life chooses to express.
That is for sure. That is fact.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it can be really gnarly, but sometimes that's part of it.
And I think, you know, like, to be honest, like, you need to go back to, like, and to make meaning of, like, the word suffering. Mm-hmm. That was one of the lessons that I have gone through over the course of the couple of years, is to be human is to, like, suffering is inevitable, but that is part of the human experience.
It's what causes evolution, actually.
You know, like, and that's very much, then that was one of the things. It was like, well, I don't understand, because, like, to go, like, the light and dark, right? Like, I'm like, I am love and light, and, like, this is, so I don't need to feel those things, right? Like, I can choose to feel this about things, you know? That got me to a very high place, but also like, okay, like now, you know, when as ascension happened, right, come down, like, and now we're going to experience it this way. Because when I say, like, will have like a life well lived, and have like created the life, my perfect life, it is through those trials and tribulations.
Yeah, it's the inclusion. The universe expressing is always this and that. It's never this or that.
Right.
And the thing you'll notice as you evolve and you hold more light, you have the ability to hold more experiences without suffering. You will still feel the sensations of heartache and pain and things like that, but they won't fuck with you.
Yes.
They won't take you off your place of, I actually am this love being.
Yes.
And so, yes, the more that we choose our right path, the less we need these kinds of dense, hard, rough things. We won't have, like, traumatic experiences happening anymore, but we'll still completely embrace, even more so embrace, what it is to be human.
Yes.
Because that's really... You don't ascend without taking everything with you. Right. You're not losing data. You're taking the data with you as you hold in more. And it's beautiful to know that the end game is the same for everybody. It's that you've taken every experience that you can have, and it's all clothed in love. And then you're just into, like, whatever's next, which is a whole different conversation. But
yeah, like, it's so, because, like, in my Gratitude Day that I said, I was like, if you pay attention to the videos that I've been posting, it's things like where I've had to be like, I have to remind myself that I like being human, you know, like, in these moments or things, and like, and it is like, it is all of those lessons, and, you know, obviously, like, intertwined into whatever it is, and that even goes back to, like, collectively and healing, like, all of these things. I just keep having, like, pop.
I know, it gets to the point where it's like, have your pick, like, what beautiful thing do I want to look at next? Like, I would love to ask you, like, what has been, maybe not the most, because sometimes it's hard to pick, but, like, what has stood out to you as something that's really made a difference in you just being on this path of just raising your light and just being more yourself? Like, what do you feel like has really...
What do you mean?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I can answer it so many different ways.
I'll give you an example for me, what mine is, and then that'll make more sense. So there's been a lot of different, like, modalities and ways that I've done things different so that I can feel more whole and I can be triggered less and just whatever. For me, I would say, aside from just observing and having awareness, because I really think that that's just the key thing. Awareness opens the space for everything else. But once you have awareness, it's, for me, the number one thing that has really transformed the way I relate to myself and to life has been the way I talk to myself. Hands down. I've done lots of things, and they've all helped in different ways. Some things have not been for me. Some things I've tried for a little while and then let them go. Like, I was like, for a little while into crystals. I still think crystals are rad. Like, talk about frequencies. That's where it's at. But, like, I don't feel supported by crystals, like, the way one of my really dear friends does.
Yes.
Like, she has a relationship where it's, like, supporting her. But for me, it has been the natural way I respond to myself when things I don't prefer come up. Because I have created such a relationship with myself that now it's normal and natural. It's my immediate response is to say something either really neutral and like disarming or just really loving.
Yes.
And it's just how I live in my head all day. And I take that for granted because it took several years of, I mean, I think, well, it makes sense. When I was a child, that was the number one way I would hurt myself, was the way I would talk to myself. So it makes sense that it would come full circle that way. But I think it's really different for everybody what feels so supportive of them being able to just continue on a path of just going the right direction.
Yeah. I think it was reparenting. It was speaking to myself, and it was loving, not like... choosing words of kindness. It's the being able to hug myself. You know what I mean? It's the knowing I'm not perfect. As a Capricorn, like, it is... the perfection is a thing, right? And it's the no, like, and it's not a perfect idea of life. It's living the life that I want and having that, and like, and for, like, I cannot say, like, having a support system in place for me to be able to, when I go outside of myself, like when I'm struggling to, self-regulation has been one of the things that I've had to learn, right? So is the regulating and being like, oh, not going from, because then I told you, like, I had to retrain my nervous system after being in a narcissistic relationship. Yeah. So learning that, and it's putting this, like, my support system, if I did not have my cousin and my sister and my friends, like, to help me regulate when I can't, and go to, like, even just yesterday, like, when I was having a moment, I texted my sister, just please tell me everything's going to be okay. And then she texted me, just text back, everything will be okay. And just having that, you know what I mean? But that's even subconscious, like, to be like, okay, I can read that. And now I know she needed to hear that shit too.
No.
Or like being able to trust my cousin. One, like, to be like, this is how I'm feeling today, and she's like, I'm sorry you're feeling that, like, and just being able to be vulnerable when I'm having these moments, instead of like, no, denying these thoughts, like, because it's still there for me. It's just not denying it. Right. And it's being able to talk myself out of it, be like, no, this is a bad, like, or being put in experiences like, no, this is a bad day, it does not mean a bad life. Right. And having to reframing. Yes. And doing all of that, and like, to be able to have the vulnerability to go outside of myself, because I do still struggle with always wanting to be positive, like toxic positivity. Like, I know that this is who I am, but on the other edge of that, you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, it's not all of who you are. It's one angle that serves you, but it's not... It's a dull life to just hang out in one feeling all the time. Right. It doesn't even make any sense.
I mean, like, I love it. Like, joy and happiness and
that's
is my
where
go-to.
That's where unconditional love isn't... It doesn't mean having that lovey feeling that comes up when you, like, get a good hug. That's like... I think it's so incredible. Everything that you just shared, it just shows me how, like, everything that we need is so built in, but we are conscientiously building it. We're building, like, the foundation for that to just be there in the future. It's like it's like, I love how there's, like, this part of you that will get ahead of you. It'll get ahead and it'll be like, all right, I got you. Like, in the future, when you have this experience, so to speak, like, everything's here for you, because in this moment you decided that this is really what I need, and you put your foot down for it. And I can see the same thing in my life. I didn't even think of it when I was bringing up this question, but you do naturally build a a support system, a community, meaningful connections with people who just never second guess the truth of who you are and are always going to have your back.
Right.
More of that is always welcome. Like, we're wanting to build a community, and like I have this vision of like, for me, what the new earth looks like in terms of just everybody really feeling like they can be transparent, that safety isn't even a topic anymore. Like, why would you even think about being safe? Like, you know, like this idea where we are heading that way, but this is how we create it. We create it by understanding one experience at a time that we are safe.
Yes.
And it's because of how you lived your life. It's not an accident that you have your cousin and your sister and whoever else.
Right.
Like, it's not, there's no, and you will always have more of what you desire as you notice that you have it. And it's just, that's beautiful. Like, that's beautiful for you to know that, and for me to know that, yeah, for sure the time is going to come up where I'm going to have a really rough morning, or like, I got like an hour of sleep last night. I was like, question mark how I'm going to feel today, but I'll take a nap later. I'm not even tired right now, but like in the beginning, it started to feel last night like something was like, I was really going to need to wrestle with something. And then I just sat there for a while and I'm like, you know what? Probably I just need to be awake right now. That's probably all it is. And I just noticed that I didn't make it wrong. And for a while, I kind of enjoyed my night. I didn't really do anything, but I didn't suffer or struggle or anything. But the invitation to do that in the beginning was there. And it's just so interesting how, yeah, I don't know. That's just me kind of trailing in my thoughts, recognizing things. But you do always deep down have what you need. And you'll always have more of it.
Right.
And I just think people need to hear that. Like, the more you notice what you need and create that, the more of it you'll have. So it's just being brave enough to have those initial experiences and like, yeah.
And I think like, and you say like as you were saying, like for me to have my sister and my cousin, and you know, like, and I think of like my kids, right? And I don't know, like I think I told you about my son and how like we've had, because we just have these conversations. We're driving, like we go out to, like, we do things together all of the time. He was asking me about souls and stuff like that, because he's kind of like, oh no, like he goes back and forth, and I remember one time being like, no, like we are just, you know, like on the other side, we're not mother and son. Like, that's how we chose to come here and experience each other, you know? And it's like part of your soul tribe, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that is like, yeah, like whether they're my cousin and my sister, you know, like it's just part of our tribe. We're here, you know, to help, like, help my sister evolve, help my cousin, you know what I mean? Through, like, this is the kind of things like that we just do with people, and you don't even, you know, it's just how we chose to be in each other's lives this time around. And I think, like, that is, when you look at it that way, I think it takes pressure off of, like, for me, it takes pressure off of being a mom. Yeah. You know, and having to do and say everything right.
Yeah, that comes from enough places.
Yes, right? Like, and I always, like, feel like I had, like, it's just, it is what it is. We all have our own journeys that we are placed on each other's paths in a way to experience for the maximum amount of growth. And that goes back to when I'm talking about, like, the council of your spirit guides, and it's like, okay, this is how we're going to place it, because you're going to be able to evolve so much in this way with having this person, right? Like, my relationship with my son is very different than my daughter. I know why you know what I mean? Like, there's these things, like, it's to evolve her differently than it is to evolve him differently. Right. You know, like, it's just the way that it came about, and like, that's a whole nother. I have a whole nother podcast in my head right now.
If you want to, like, in my opinion, if you want to describe perfection, that's what it is. It's how everything is the perfect answer and, like, component or partner to what the other needs. That's why I love so much focusing on, like, your gifts and your passions, is because the fact that you have something rising up in you that gets you so excited and so, like, it makes you feel so big. It makes you feel like the bigness of life. It's because there's aspects in the world that want to receive that.
Yes.
They want that, and they want you, and life wants you. So, like, the more that you can just, like, sit back and be like, yeah, like, man, my kid's relationship and it's the same for me. It's like, it's so interesting how in certain areas of my life I want to rush so much to, like, get ahead in this area of my life. But if I would just apply that with my kids and how I relate to them, I'd master it in a heartbeat. And then when I remember that, I'm like, oh yeah, like, this is good.
Yeah.
This is like, they are, like, the best teachers when it comes to kids and animals.
Yeah.
But like, I just, it is just the way you can observe, like, from a molecular level under a telescope, the perfection of like plants or whatever you want to look at, and just the design, how everything is so intelligently designed and so awe-inspiring is really the best way to describe it. That's your life. And the parts that feel like you're bumping up against them and that's like, what is going on with this? That's all being revealed. But it's about enjoying what you can see right now while life is showing you what's next.
I think it goes to, like, when we first met, last week.
I know, like, how many days ago?
You talked about flow, and that's really, and that is the one thing, like, I constantly need to surrender because, like, I do, like, want to control, right?
Yeah.
Wanting things to be when I want them to be, feeling like,
it feels good to control.
Yeah, and it's, like, yesterday I got the not so gentle reminder to surrender some more, and like that is, like that's a whole thing. But I don't know, I lost my train of thought, but I know we have to wrap this up. And I wanted to go back to, like, the true essence, right? So we talk about true self, and that is your true essence, right? And like when we hide parts of ourselves that we aren't comfortable putting out there because of guilt, shame, fear, judgment, whatever it is that the program, right? It goes to being like, when I talked about channeling in the way, like, we're a supercomputer or we're living a video game or whatever, whatever way you choose to see it, it's like we had these programs that were like, okay, it's not okay, you're going to be made fun of this way, right? Like, that's when I think of, like, where these, like, self-limiting beliefs come from or came from would be, like, a time in junior high when I was made fun of for X, right? So then I don't want to show that true self, right? Right? We all do.
Junior high.
Yes, right? Like, and so it's, we want to hide that version of ourselves and show up in a different way because that version was
almost like
judged,
compensating.
shamed. Yes. Yeah. So that's when that becomes a shadow aspect, right? Like, because, or like that's where judgment comes from. And like that person, I don't want to be that person, that part of me, because it was made fun of and nobody wants to be hurt, right?
You don't want to experience it and relive it. So you try your best to avoid that being a situation. Right. By not letting yourself interact with life as it arises. Right. And it's,
But then that is hiding your true essence, right? And then, like, you were made to be you. You came here to be you. The world needs you. Everyone's uniqueness. Like, we all come from one, but, like, it's so, like, it was described to me as, like, imagine, like, a pitcher of water, right? And or like I'm gonna lose it, but like it was the ocean, and then like we're all parts of the ocean, but it's just different drops of like a rainbow. Like
the nature of water is always the same, but it expresses as it moves into different.
Like and it's the just, ocean. It's still the mist, all of the ocean, but this one has red food like coloring in it. This one has green, but it's still the ocean.
The nature of what it is.
Yes. It's just
you can't.
Unique.
Your nature can't be touched. It can't be scarred. It can't be marked. There's nothing that can affect the essence of what you are. Right. And who you are is a choice.
And you're doing the world a disservice by hiding those aspects of yourself. When you came here to be that, you're doing yourself and you're doing the world a disservice by hiding parts of yourself because you think that they're unlovable. Actually, you know what I mean? Whatever reason it is that people find to hide themselves, it is denying the universe your true essence and your true power, and then you never get to fully embody who you are meant to be, and that is a travesty. And that is, I think, a good way to end.
No, I think it's beautiful. It's like, it's just the most human conversation that can be had. And, at the end of the day, we're just little by little understanding that to have an experience doesn't have to mean that's how you identify. So who you are isn't actually your identity, because your identity is as changeable as your personality. It's a choice. Who you are is before all of that. Right. So that's the little end piece to explore for everybody, is just like who would you be and who are you without your experiences, before you had the experience, after you had an experience. Like, the things that we think shape us so firmly are just after who we are. Right. And so it's a place to go look and to go like to be with, because you'll love the answer. And it's
awesome.
beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
on that note, that is going to end today's podcast.
Yeah, that was a
But
word.
give your name for
Yes.
You have a YouTube channel, and you're trying to, like, you have your own specific niche that you're trying to work out, that you're doing for who you are and putting your messages out there. So what is your channel?
So the best way, what is my channel name? So I'm on Instagram. I just created a new channel this morning too.
Oh yeah.
So I'm on Instagram, and my handle is Home Tribe Oracle. My name is Alyssa Dara. And my YouTube channel is also Home Tribe Oracle, but I think there's something else in like the handle on it because I don't
And
know.
I'll link it, but I'm so not good with technology, and like I'll put all of the things in there to be able to.
Yeah, find me on Instagram. That's the constant. I mean, I do keep my YouTube channels going, but they're evolving. But Instagram, Home Tribe Oracle. I also like to give out my email just because if I'm always like an open invitation for people to directly like connect if they had questions, and that's hometribeoracle@gmail.com. But yeah, my name is Alyssa Dara, and I am here for all of it.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest. Thank you. This was so much fun. I love it so much.
Yeah. Oh, the one little part that I did want to add, because I'm trying to practice this more often, where I present myself as someone who actually has a point. And that is that my passion and the way that I love to connect and to support and celebrate you are really being able to create a passion-filled life based on feeling so confident in who you are. So it's like you're just living this life so in love with who you are, so excited to share what you have to share because you own it, you know it, and you're really constantly following that thread of passion. So if any of that is like something you'd like to explore, or you just feel like, man, I could really use more confidence in my life, I show up in all kinds of ways, and I'd be more than honored to support and cheer you on. So that is, in a nutshell,
awesome. Thank you.
So
thank you so much.
Thank you. Like, what a wild ride.
I know. All right, thank you guys, and have a beautiful day.